Go ahead.
So Dad's brother, my uncle Rube, had been in the Marine Corps during World War I, and he got hit by a shrapnel that cut his lower jaw off, and he was in the hospital in Washington, D.C. for a number of months. But Dad, while he was in World War II, was an ambulance driver in France, and when he came back out, he tried to be a musician, but he wasn't quite good enough, though he did play violin with the Toledo Philharmonic Orchestra for a season. And his first cousin, Melvin Jensen, was the one that got him interested in the violin to begin with, because he was quite an accomplished musician. He was the first violinist and the musical arranger for Glenn Gray's Casa Loma Orchestra. So when the Casa Loma Orchestra played any place near Toledo, why, he would always see that Dad had a third violinist job for a couple of nights while they performed locally. So Dad was really a frustrated musician, but he had to resort his bricklaying trade. But when I decided to join the Navy, we didn't decide to join the Navy. My brother Al kept saying, well, let's join the Marine Corps. We went to Windsor, Ontario, across the Detroit River from Detroit, to apply to join the Canadian Air Force, because they were looking for Air Force pilots. But they would not guarantee that we would go for pilot training. They would put us in their Air Force, but maybe we would be assigned as mechanics or runners or whatever they do. They wouldn't guarantee a chance at becoming a pilot. So Al kept saying, well, then we'll join the Marines. So we went to Toledo, where the nearest recruiting stations were, in the courthouse in Toledo. And two buddies that we grew up with and hunted with regularly, there were three Himberg boys, but the two of them were closer to us. And the four of us went down to join the Marines. And we went into the courthouse and down to the Marines office, and it was closed. This was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And immediately across the hall from the Marine recruiting station was the Navy recruiting station. And there was a chief petty officer sitting behind the desk there, and he said, can I help you fellas? And my brother said, well, we're looking for the Marine sergeant. And he said, well, he's gone, but he should be back in 20 or 30 minutes. He normally is at this time of day. So if you'd like to come in and sit down till he gets here, it's all right, come on in. So we took him up on his word and went in and sat down. And he didn't really pay any attention to us. He had invited us to sit, and that's all right, we'd sit. But of course, you're inquisitive, and behind his desk he had a picture of a great big Navy ship, and we asked, what ship is that? And he said, that's one of the Navy's newest cruisers. That's the USS Tuscaloosa. Well, what do they do? How do they run? What do they got? How big are their guns? A number of questions like that. So we started asking him questions, and he'd answer them. And then we'd look back out the hall, and there's still no Marine out there. And finally, younger Himberg brother Bill said, well, how much does a sailor get paid? And he said, well, anybody joining the military, don't make any difference whether it's the Marine Corps or the Army or the Navy, you all start at $21 a month. And after 4 months, then you, either of the services, you've completed your recruit training, and at the end of 4 months, they automatically increase you to $30 a month. Except, of course, the Navy. Oh, what does the Navy do? Well, if you join the Navy, it's automatically increased to $36 a month. Now here, I had worked for LB for $15 a month the previous 2 years. The starting pay is $21 a month. The Marine Corps will give you $30 a month, but the Army will too. But the Navy will give you $36. But from then on, just like in the other branches, you're on your own. You've got to meet the requirements and pass the exams and hope you get promoted. Well, we waited in his office about an hour probably, and the Marine sergeant didn't return. And so we finally gave up on waiting for him, and we were going home, and I suggested to Al that we might come back and talk about joining the Navy. Well, he wasn't the least bit interested, but both Bill and Bob Himberg were. So I think it was probably 2 weeks later that Bob and Bill Himberg went back down and talked to the Navy recruiter, and we got ourselves set up for enlistment a month later, or in the next month anyway. So I joined the Navy on the 9th day of March 1941, and we had a choice of going to Great Lakes Naval Station for training, for Newport, Rhode Island Training Station for basic training, or Norfolk, Virginia for basic training. We could pick one of the three and they'd send us there. And from then on, it depended on the needs of the Navy where you went. But this was in February when we're first doing it, and we're joining on the 9th of March. And so we decided the best weather at that time of the year was in Norfolk, Virginia. So we went to, the three of us went together to Norfolk, Virginia. We got assigned to the same recruit training platoon. There was 3 platoons active going through training at that time. They all started together, and there's approximately 70 men in each platoon. So the 3 of us were in platoon 71. It was 70, 71, and 72. And we were in platoon 71. We graduated from basic training together, and we went home on leave, and we were to report back in to Newport, Rhode Island for assignment to a ship after our boot leave, recruit leave. And when we went back, all 3 of us were assigned to the USS Tuscaloosa. Now,